Meridian, Mississippi. Its history begins in 1831 in much the same way as many small settlements east of the mighty Mississippi River did in the 19th century, specifically through Native American displacement. In this case, the Choctaw Indians agreed to vacate their territory, quote unquote, under the terms of the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek. The first settler in the area was Richard McLemore of Virginia, establishing what would ultimately become Meridian, Mississippi. McLemore offered free land to draw more people into the region, but it was the railroad that would play the most significant role in the growth and sustainment of the community. During the early 1860s, the town had become an integral part of the Confederates' stronghold of the South. With an arsenal, a military hospital, a prisoner of war stockade, and headquarters for several state offices, it was destined to become a target for Union forces. This came to fruition in February 1864 when General William Tecumseh Sherman's army destroyed the city's railroad and much of the surrounding area as he made his way toward his famous March to the Sea. In fact, Sherman is credited with saying, "Meridian, with its depots, storehouse, arsenals, hospitals, offices, hotels, and cantonments, no longer exists." Despite this setback, the railroads were repaired in 26 days and the city continued to grow. From 1890 until 1930, Meridian was the state's largest city and a leader in manufacturing. Today, many of Meridian's historical neighborhoods feature fine homes and buildings typical of their era, having 9 recognized historic districts and neighborhoods, including the largest collection of historic buildings in its downtown district in the state.
On my way to visit my brother Dave, I made the entire 14.5-hour trip with only a brief 4-hour sleep break, because it was raining pretty much the whole way. This determination was derived from a seminar that I attended with the best-selling author Rory Vaden. In his book, Take the Stairs, Vaden introduces the concept of the pain paradox, which states that short-term easy leads to long-term difficult, while short-term difficult leads to long-term easy. In history, this was illustrated by a very specific phenomena that involves the American bison, an animal that was named the national mammal of the United States on May 9, 2016. There are a few symbols that represent our past and the American West quite like the American bison, better known as the buffalo, which is also used throughout North America in official seals, flags, and logos. One of the most fascinating characteristics of the bison is how they react when a storm is coming. While cows, their close relatives, huddle together or run away from a storm, thus receiving the brunt of the storm in the process. By contrast, the bison charges into the storm, taking it head on and running right through it. This has the effect of reducing the amount of exposure to the storm. The symbolism of the majestic bison heading directly into the storm is very fitting and an interesting reminder of how to confront life's obstacles. We all know that the worst thing that we can do when confronted with a major challenge in life is to run from it. Unfortunately, we tend to procrastinate, and the fear of the big upcoming task gets bigger and more daunting in our heads, thus making mountains out of molehills. I'll leave you with Rory Vaden's words and a modest suggestion. Quote, "The last time you came up to a set of stairs and an escalator, did you take the stairs? If you're like 95% of the world, then you probably didn't. Most people don't. Most of the time, we look for shortcuts. We all want to be successful, and we all want to have a happy life, but we constantly look for the easy way. We look for the escalator in hopes that life will be easier. Unfortunately, in our search for making things easier, we're actually making them worse." Rory Vaden, So next time you are faced with a challenge, whether it be a complex situation at work or a difficult conversation you need to have with a friend or relative, follow the lead of the American Bison and avoid procrastination. Go directly towards the obstacle. Take it head on. Don't avoid it. As I neared Dave's house, I began to contemplate the degree to which I would impose upon him and Mardi with regards to gathering footage of their home. For all practical purposes, they were strangers to me. Obviously, after having met them, I am very familiar with them and believe that they would be okay with my filming aspects of our future visits, but I didn't want to impose on our initial meeting. When Dave found out that I had a drone, he did ask me to get some footage of his property and home. Of course, I was willing to honor that request, and I'll introduce them properly whenever I have an opportunity to visit again in the future. For now, I just wanted to have the opportunity for us to get to know each other without distractions.
This is as good a day as any to start the rebuilding of life. The roads that lay open are many when the old one's gone under the knife. And I can feel the sun on my skin, beginning to thaw from within. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today is a good day to live. This morning has a clearer light as any to see the horizon and the far. Excuses were 2 for a penny, but they've all gone out the window of this car. And when I feel the wind on my face, all that ever was is a wreck. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today, well, something's gotta give. Today is a good day. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. A good day to tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today, well, something's gotta give. Today is a good day. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Gotta give.
fly the drone. Well, actually, he didn't even ask me that. I said I was going to fly the drone, and he said, "Hey, would you mind taking pictures of my house? Would you mind getting video of my house?" And I would like to see that. And I thought, well, absolutely. That's kind of part of what I do. That's not part of. That's what I do. And so I set the drone up. Like I said, I screwed up. I pressed the camera on the drone, but I didn't press record on the console. And of course, on my phone, I could press record as well, but I saw the change in the button on my phone. And instead of assuming that all that's doing is either activating the camera and then you have to record on your phone, or press which I now know is a button on the console. And again, I've studied extensively. I've read it. I know it. Notes and notebooks. And I just don't refer to that every single time I pick it up. And this is the third time, and I felt fairly confident the first and second time. So I thought, okay, we're good. And the third time, I just forgot the record button. I did everything else safety-wise except what I'm about to tell you. Drone in the air. Well, no. Let me back up. I put the drone in the air and I didn't press that record button. And I had a perfect environment to fly through Dave's property and pan across Dave's property and then rise up above Dave's property and fly across it, the entire perimeter of his property, all the way around, so he can see it from the air. And then I brought the drone down, landed it, and took the microchip or microcard into the computer, plugged it in, and nothing there. I hit the button on the console to activate the camera, but I didn't press record, so all of that flying that I did, which was a battery's worth, about a half hour, gone. I mean, it was fun, good experience. Hell, I felt confident. That's why I did what I did afterwards, because I felt confident. So when I realized there was no footage, I just took the drone back out and tried to emulate the same thing. Didn't check weather conditions, didn't check anything. No wind gusts, no confirmation of flight capability or nothing. Didn't do a pre-check, because I'd already done that 20 minutes ago and had just landed. So I thought, let's go. Just redo it. Man, I got to a point on that property. Now I can tell you I did exactly the same thing I did before. Exactly. To the same. In fact, it was actually a little lower than before because I knew that I was above the tree line. Because I'm flying pretty much either crosswind or downwind until I got to a certain point. And it would have been, I think, the southeast corner of his property if I were doing directions. And I would turn where I needed to go, and I would watch the drone drift right or left or back, which back was bad, very bad. Because I'm thinking I'm facing into the wind apparently, and it's too strong, and I'm backing up. So I would turn across and try to use a sailing term. I tried to tack back to where I needed to be, because I knew where I was and I knew where my drone was, and I knew it was not going well. And there's two things that I forgot. So I want to remind everyone who has a drone, who has especially a Mini 1 or 2, doesn't matter, but a DJI Mini, DJI, whatever, Mini. Well, for one thing, obviously check the wind speed, but if you are way up in the wind and you need to set down, either find a clearing and just drop straight down, or change the angle on the camera so that you can
see the tree line and drop down as close to the tree line as you can, you might hit gusts. Hell, you might even end up in the trees. But how's that any different than losing your drone wherever you lose it because you can't see it or find it or whatever? And there's a couple of things that I definitely screwed up. One, obviously, was the not checking the wind speed. But for that matter, also, you know what? I don't just have to make a list to figure out what I didn't do right. Because I remember my return to home, I put the altitude correct and I did everything correct, and then I was flying underneath limbs, and when it hit return to home, when it basically said I'm coming home or you better land, it turned into or towards a tree and then stopped and then started to go straight up. Well, it was going straight up into the limbs because it had, I don't know what it had done, but it found a direction it was going to take, and it was going to run into a tree. So that and verifying wind. Oh, and well, obviously not letting it out of your sight. You're supposed to have line of sight, because when it gets up to 300 feet or so, you can't hear it unless it's directly above you. And in some cases, not even then, depending on the wind,